Take it away.
All right. Hi, guys. I am Crystal Pridmore, and I'm the creator and one of the co-hosts of the Chaotic Harmony podcast. And I'm just going to go through and introduce. I got Mark Keemer.
Hello.
Fiona Wave. And Zoe Kumagai.
Hi.
And Jonathan Seligman.
Hi.
So these are some of my favorite people, and we are very excited to be talking to all of you. So we are from San Diego, California, where we are all coming from for this Zoom chat right now. We all teach in the Chula Vista Elementary School District, which is the largest elementary school district in the state of California. And Chula Vista Elementary School District did not have music at all for the last 30 years. And so all of us were part of a huge hiring wave to re-implement the arts in Chula Vista about 6 years ago. And so all of us were brought on to begin music programs in our elementary schools from scratch with nothing, no materials. And so after a few years in the trenches of educating our community about why they needed us and bonding with each other as being pioneers, we started the podcast to not only help our colleagues who were starting in their first year, to let them know there was a little hope out there and let them know that they were not the only ones doing what they were doing. We wanted to kind of make a time capsule, and Chaotic Harmony has since changed now that we've gone from survival to feeling a little more comfortable. Our programs are more established. We've gone on a little deeper to bring more professional development and just a lot of honesty, I think, to the table in elementary music ed. So we have an ethos as a community that we are collaborative over competitive, always and forever and first. So everything that we do together. It's not about whose band or choir is better than anybody else's or who's the better teacher. It's we want to grow together, and we really bring that to our wider audience when we're talking to other educators. We have such a great deal of respect for music teachers from all kinds of circumstances, and know that I just believe that music teachers are the most high quality educators on the planet, and it makes me proud to be part of it. So when all of this came down from COVID, we got together one last time before the stay-at-home order went through in the state of California, and sort of unleashed our feelings to each other. And I'm really glad that we started talking from day one about how to take care of ourselves in the middle of this, because we have gone from doing this beautiful thing that we love, that energizes us and puts us in touch with hundreds of kids every single day, to feeling like, how am I going to survive this thing? And all of us have kind of taken on a different role helping the group survive, which I think is kind of beautiful. Myself, I have a health story where I lost 60 pounds 2 years ago, and I've worked really hard to keep it off. And I'm a health and nutrition coach now who helps other people try to live a healthy lifestyle. So I've been trying to be very intentional with my nutrition and my movement. Mark always reminds me to slow down and reach out to other people in ways that add so much value and understanding and compassion. And I just really value him for that. Zoe is like the queen of the Zen mantra. And she, every time I need something grounding, or if I'm having a rough day, I text Zoe, and she gets back to me with something to meditate on and think about, and just brings me into that spiritual place. And really appreciate that about her. And Jonathan is such a go-getter. He is the hardest worker I know. And so when we were all putting our classrooms online and trying to navigate this brand new landscape, I knew that I could go to Jonathan, and he would probably have tried it 6 times already and worked out all the kinks. So this is just, these are my people, and I'm very privileged to be part of this group. I want to let you know we're going to leave you with some resources at the end of it, and we will point you towards a webpage that we've created. I have been working with Teaching with ORF through the COVID-19 crisis as well. If you know of that organization, they're a wonderful nonprofit, and every Tuesday we've been meeting at 7 Central to do some meditation together and make sure that we remain grounded and just take care of ourselves in the midst of this crazy landscape. So I hope that you walk away from this feeling like you are part of a community of people who who understand what we are going through, and know that you are not alone, because that is the number one thing we hope every listener to the podcast walks away from, and what we want to create for you today. Just know that we hear you. We are in the trenches with you. We don't know for sure what's going to happen next week either, but we're going to walk through it arm in arm together. And I hope that you can find some actionable steps at the end of this to just take a little piece of something to take a little better care of yourself while you take care of others. And with that, I believe it's Jonathan, yes?
I believe so, yes.
John,
Or,
can I
I'm
jump in
sorry.
really quick?
Please, by all
Thank
means.
you, Mark.
Yeah, so hello everyone, I'm Mark. Towards the end of this workshop, we're going to field a Q&A. And so if at any point during whoever's talking, you have a question that you would like answered, if you want to private message me, I'm Mark Keemer. We'll kind of compile all those and then we'll do a blast Q&A at the end. I think that's all I had. Did I miss anything, guys? Great.
No,
John.
you're good. All right, so before we start, or maybe actually just continue the whole conversation, I'd like to bring up a story. Over a year ago, in August of 2018, one of my coworkers passed away unexpectedly. His name was Lee Si-san, and he taught 6th grade at my school for 15 years. And he was the spirit of our school. He pumped everyone up, and he was lovable, loyal, and constantly seeking to just lift other people up. He was pretty much like a music teacher without being a music teacher, just cared so much about not just his students, but also his coworkers like me. And it was hard when he passed. I had former students talking to me after school, come visiting and just sharing their pains. One of them asked me if it was okay if they still believed that he was still alive, or if that this didn't exist at all. And there were also on-site psychologists during this time to converse with staff and students. And I went, a lot of our staff members went, a lot of our students went. But something fascinating that happened was that none of Lee's students went to see a psychologist. Not a single one. And I mean, how could you? You're an 11-year-old attempting to wrap your brain around the death of someone you looked up to. You looked forward to being their students. The rest of the world moved around and kept on moving the same way, but inside they knew something was gone. And the plans they had for their final year in elementary school was a mystery. It was uncertain. It was just gone, entirely gone. It was loss. There were positive things that came from that situation, but I just kind of want to sit with that word right now, the word loss. And that's kind of where we are right now, whether we choose to acknowledge it or not. Not just as an educator from Casillas Elementary, as myself, or like my colleagues here, educators from Chula Vista, and not just educators from the United States. Everybody, everyone around the world in this globalized society has suffered some bit of loss. For me, I had a huge collaborative concert that was to be planned. I had 15 schools that were going to be performing at my school site. It was, as Crystal mentioned, along with our mantra, it wasn't a competition, but it was a celebration of the arts and music. And it was supposed to be also a bit of advocacy as well. And that was supposed to happen on March 20th. And after 6 months of planning, that event was taken away. That's how I suffered loss. For one of my roommates, she was furloughed by her job, while her husband and I were the lucky ones who got to get paid to work at home. She has no job. She has suffered loss. My other roommate, who is in the high-risk category of COVID-19, who loves the outdoors, has chosen for his health and the health of others, frankly enough, to not go outside, which is kind of his heart, his love, unless for extreme circumstances. And he suffered a loss through that. And one of my coworkers, who's a 4th grade teacher, her cousin passed away because of COVID-19. And so she has suffered loss as well. We've all suffered a loss in one way or another. And especially as music educators, I know you. We entrench ourselves with our identity in what we do. We teach our kids, we make them artistic, we bring light to the world. And yet, just like Lee's students, as we see the world moving around us, our first and every instinct really is to try to do something. I need to do something to create normalcy is the mentality we have. Whether we succeed at it or not, that's what we tell ourselves. And even if we do succeed, that void is still there. Unless we address the fact that we have suffered loss and that we are in grief. While not everyone has lost a loved one like Lee's students have, we are all grieving, and that grief takes time to process. Grief takes time to process. And if you aren't whole by week 4, that's okay. If you aren't whole by week 10, that's okay. And if when we come to return to our classrooms eventually, that will happen. When we do eventually come to our classrooms and you're not whole by then, that's okay too. Despite our desires to have the world come back to what it was, it won't. 2 years later, Lee is still gone. As Teacher Appreciation Week began this week, it began today actually, I thought of him in our staff meeting. But I'll tell you one thing. May 2019, almost a year passed, my choir students performed a very heavy piece commemorating to Lee, a song called Saturn by the group Sleeping at Last. It's not a happy tune. It's not a morose tune either, mind you, but it acknowledged his death and it acknowledged Lee for what he had done for the entire community. And during that concert, some of his students were finally, for the first time, able to allow themselves to cry, allowed to give themselves release. So as we continue this conversation, I just want to say that if you haven't given time for yourself yet to sit with this loss, give it. Sit with this grief, and that's okay. The world may continue to move on and spin around, but if you're not there yet, that's fine. I don't think any of us really is, if we're going to be honest with ourselves. Give yourself time to sit with this loss. And when you're ready with yourself in an authentic way, then forward motion can happen.
Hey, John, thank you for being so vulnerable and telling that story to us. And it made me think back to, well, what you were saying, and also just talking to Terry a little bit before this meeting started. It reminded me of when I was in college and I would drive through Pennsylvania. I was in college in Michigan and I would drive through Pennsylvania to visit my brother in New York. He was like my closest relative. And I did that drive by myself. It was like 12, 13-hour drive. I think it was 80, 90. And, you know, that feeling of loneliness, I think is another big emotion that I've been trying to untangle. And it's hard because like we're confined. I have my husband here, so I'm not alone, but I think missing our community, our school community and our students has really left me in a space that I haven't felt in years. And just hearing you share, and hopefully we'll get to hear from some of the other people that are here today, just like how are you processing and how are you feeling? Mark, maybe I could like toss this to you.
That was amazing, Zoe. So on our screen, we have a QR code. So if you are fairly tech friendly and if you have a phone, go ahead and pull it out and go to the QR code. If not, in the chat, I just posted a link to a Padlet. And so just kind of piggybacking off of what John had said and what Zoe had said, the Padlet is just for an opportunity for you to just kind of write what has been going on. I know for me, I'm a person who I enjoy perfection, and I don't enjoy sharing in the imperfection of what I do. And so the Padlet is just kind of a space for you to just write something that you've kind of felt during this quarantine. We've been quarantined for a little over a month, so we're actually coming up on 2 months here shortly. And so if you go to the Padlet and you can write in, it's completely anonymous. It just, I think, is a good way for you to just kind of see how you're doing but then also kind of how other people are doing during this time. So we'll just give a couple moments for people to log onto the Padlet. Again, that QR code or the link that's been posted in the chat. And yeah, just as it kind of shows up, just kind of read what other people are feeling. And I guarantee you that someone else has felt that way. I'm seeing right here, one is overwhelmed. And I can't tell you how many times I've sat at my desk just thinking like, oh my gosh, I have so much to do. I have to contact these kids. I have to contact those kids. I need to set up this class dojo for my band. I need to do this and this. And it's just this feeling that just can kind of crush you. I felt that. And I see that someone else has felt that. And just kind of as we're typing them all reading, am I doing enough? Am I doing too much? I don't feel that I'm doing enough. And I had this conversation with a third grade teacher at my school, and like, I don't feel like I'm doing enough. And it is so frustrating. And especially as music teachers, you care so deeply about what you do. You care so deeply about your students that you have this connection with them that no one else in the school might have, you know? So yeah, like that's out there, that's there. And if anyone else on the team wants to kind of jump in and comment on what you're seeing, but yeah, I'll just let you read for just a few moments.
Yeah, someone's saying, am I doing enough or too much? And I can relate to that. And Mark and I were talking about this the other day, how we felt like we worked all day, but it's like, what did we do? And we used to have a very definite beginning to music class, and then music class ended and you sent the children home. And I don't know about you, but I absorb my children's feelings and I no longer have those boundaries. So I'm not getting a ton of feedback. When I do connect with a kid, all of their feelings just come and stick to me. And I'm getting, chats and messages 24/7. And it's just this constant, because I can't look them in their little face. Is it enough?
Crystal, go ahead.
Go for it.
Great.
I believe in you.
Crystal, there's one that says, how can I possibly be doing my job well when I'm taking care of my own kids and family? I know we'll kind of touch upon this in a minute, but you have two young kids at home. Do you just maybe for just a brief moment want to talk about that?
I have
kind of jump into schedules?
Sure. Yeah, I have two little boys in two different elementary school grades who are both trying to do distance learning while I'm supposed to be on various Zooms for my classroom and doing lesson plans, and my husband is working full-time, and we have roommates also sharing our internet connection who are working full-time from the same home. So yeah, it's overwhelming. And I've just had to be really honest with my administration that my engagement is not going to look like some of my colleagues who don't have kids. I can't. The school day no longer begins at 7:30 and ends at 2:30. Sorry. So yeah.
Yeah. And John, what were you gonna say?
Well, I was just like jumping on what was said earlier about the whole, like, am I doing enough aspect? But we were talking about this earlier with the four of us about like impostor syndrome, this mentality that we all hit all the time. And any educator, especially music educators, I feel like. And when we started teaching, like we started having this, am I really a good teacher? These questions came up. And as we became better educators, we became more confident in our skills. And we interacted with a lot of our friends down who are phenomenal teachers. And yet, because of COVID-19, it's like an entirely different workspace. I see some people talking about just the uncertainty of how technology works. And the imposter syndrome definitely kicked in really hard with a lot of our colleagues. I'm not sure if you guys have felt that at all, but I think that's entirely normal.
Sometimes I feel judged because the whole world can see me teach. Yes. I have felt that to the nth degree. I am a music teacher who is super self-conscious about my singing voice. And now I'm making these videos where I'm singing, and which
are phenomenal.
Well, thank you, John.
They're amazing. He's Mr. Rogers.
That's anyway. So like, I get that. Yes, I feel that. And that is just, it's nerve-wracking, you know, even like in our classrooms, when it's just you and the kids, you have this safety, you have this this ability just to kind of riff off each other and kind of feel where they're going, how they're doing. And then now you don't have that. And it is like you're talking to a camera that is just stiff Steve, you know?
Stiff Steve?
That's what I mean.
Stiff Steve?
Stiff Steve. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm seeing a general theme emerge here, and if this were a Wordle, I think you would see some of the words getting really big. I've seen guilt a lot, and worry, guilt and worry and frustration. And I think we are a group of people used to immediate feedback, and we are used to being able to pivot quickly. And improvise. I think the best teachers are amazing improv artists, and you can't do that digitally. And this is stressful. And I think the place that we've all had to come to is shifting our focus from great pedagogy, which all of these people are amazing pedagogues, to what can I do to make sure that everybody's okay, or the maximum amount of kids that I connect with are okay, or even all I thought is the most important thing right now. And hopefully your administrators are as understanding as the ones that we are privileged to work with. But I think that we keep coming back to how amazing is it that the arts are where people are turning in the middle of this pandemic for comfort and for normalcy. And I think that, you know, for as long as this goes on, that's where our focus has to be, is what can I give my children by themselves? I want my lessons to be like one more thing that a kid has to click on and worry about. I really want them to do something that gives them a minute of joy as they're struggling to learn their math lesson that they don't have their teacher to help them with, or reading. You know, I think about all of my kids that were low to begin with, who no longer have that one-on-one teacher support. What can I do to let them know I care about you, bring the focus to their own wellness, and hopefully make music something fun, because we don't know when we're going to be back in the classroom with them face to face. And I've just kind of come to accept, like, we're going to have some ground to make up, just like every other teacher. We're going to have some ground to make up. So I think our role is just different right now. So yeah. And are the kids enjoying the lessons? Yeah, that's hard. So I
kids
feel
watching the lessons.
Yeah. I keep being surprised at the number of kids when I call them at home or when I reach out to them on their classrooms who are following. They're subscribed to the YouTube channel. They're finding their lessons. They just aren't telling me about it. And it keeps coming up over and over again that they want to see us. Because sometimes we'll link to each other's videos, but we are learning that even if we link to another teacher's video, we better come on with a 30-second video at the beginning to let them know, hey, I love you, I miss you, I care about you, I'm thinking about you. This is my friend, Mr. Keemer, who has a really fun lesson for you. But they miss their teachers. They miss us. They miss school. They miss normal. And so just like we're all feeling cut off and frustrated, and am I doing enough? I think it's important to remember that the kids are feeling that too. They're feeling like, is the work that I'm turning in okay? Does it even matter? Does the work that I'm turning in on this Google Classroom even matter to my teacher? The parents are wondering, I wonder, you know, is this lesson that I'm trying to get my very stubborn second grader to do and turn into his teacher going to be worth it? Are eyeballs going to see it? Is this worth the family fight right now? So that's kind of why I, you know, from a mom standpoint, I'm trying to shift my focus as an educator as well.
To jump on that, actually, like, I remember us talking about this very topic, that I feel like this time that a lot of apprehension, as we can see, this Padlet, like, of how to work technology, it allows us to have empathy towards our students who have those same apprehensions. So while we're suffering, I think it's good for us to recognize where we're suffering so that we can perhaps feel for our students who are feeling the same emotions as we are possibly.
Yeah. How many times have I stood in a classroom and asked a kid to improvise on the Orff instruments and it's crickets and I get frustrated? And here I am refilming myself 17 times before I post my video because I know a lot of people are going to see it and judge it.
Only 17?
Just the intro, John. Just the intro.
Just the intro.
Just the
Gotcha.
intro.
I'm Mr. No. Yeah.
Why did I say that? Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you all for sharing and being so brave.
Thank you for your
doing
honesty.
That. Yeah, we appreciate it.
I wanted to add one thing, because this Padlet is cool. How I don't know how it's rearranging itself. It's magic, but I don't know. The one that's right in front of me, there's so much work demanded with technology, distance learning, that every now and then it causes anxiety. So I go out for a walk, and that one totally resonates with me. And reminds me of this podcast that Crystal and I have been listening to, Unlocking Us, with Brene Brown is the creator of that one. And her first episode talks about FFTs, and there's an expletive in there, so I won't say it out loud, but the PG version is an FTT, so it's a first terrible time. And that is what we're all going through. And she, in her first episode, was saying, and she's recording this in her home because of COVID, she's like, I'm experiencing it now, and it's so frustrating. And step one is when you're in it, you can name it. We can all name this experience. It's terrible, but it's our first time and it will get better. So that anxiety, like, yes, I feel it too. Going out for walks is helping me too. And yeah.
And I actually think that perfectly segues into kind of what we're doing in kind of our schedules. So John, if you don't mind just flipping back. The four of us are in, really quick though, that Joey eating something has become who I am during this quarantine. So we'll talk about schedules in a moment, but I've become Joey, where I sit on the couch and I'm eating something, not great. Fortunately, I'm already married, so I have no one to impress. So we kind of just broke down our schedules. So the four of us are in very different life stages, but we still all have the same objectives. And do we each kind of want to talk about our schedules? Like, John, do you want to go first? Because you're the first one on here, and just kind of what that looks like to you, and then where do you feel like you are able to kind of focus on what you need to do for you to keep going?
Can I actually give a little bit of context before we each?
Yep. Sorry.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
So Crystal and I wrote an article the first weekend that we were in quarantine, and we put it out for the world on Teaching with Orff. And about 3 days after we published it, I texted Crystal and I said, Crystal, the things that I just shared with everybody, I can't keep up with. Because I had read, make a schedule for yourself, stick to your schedule. And the schedule that I shared was just so ambitious that I was crashing by day 3. So what you're seeing here is something that we talked about today. It's like, where are we today? And not to say this is what anyone else should do, but just to give you an idea of how we're dealing with it and how different it can be.
Actually, that segues pretty nicely because as you were saying, Zoe, despite the fact that I was talking about the very beginning about making sure you sit with grief when sitting with the situation, I clearly have not, as you can see on my orange little segment. When we compiled these schedules, it was really hard because my schedule is so in flux. And for example, Mondays and Thursdays are the worst. I have 5 meetings today, 5 meetings, not including this event right here. There are 5 meetings I have on Mondays, typically. I have choir rehearsal on Thursdays, 2 choir rehearsals. I have band rehearsal on Friday. We have our Save the Music Foundation meeting on Thursday as well, plus also our VAPA meeting on Thursday. So everything's in flux. There's no consistency. Well, there's consistencies, but there's like so many pockets of where we're supposed to where we're supposed to get work done. So my schedule, I get up. Step 1, if I do that, great job, Mr. Seligman. But I get up around 5:30 because I have to what my goal was in the very beginning of this whole crisis was to pump out videos for my students to do musical activities. I believe Crystal mentioned this, I don't recall, but our district is focusing a lot on social and emotional wellness. And so having activities for the students to do that are just artistic and not necessarily at high-end music, it was like my focus. So at 6 o'clock, I start recording. I want to pump out 4 videos a week because I'm living with people who are doing conferences. That's the best time for me to make those videos, or else their sound will bleed through. So from 6 to, so wakes up 6 o'clock, get breakfast, do email, 6:20, but 6:30 to 8 o'clock, I really just start doing work. And that's 8 p.m., yes. And again, it's just, the schedule is not consistent and it's not easy to work with. I'm thankful though that I can actually attempt, I emphasize the word attempt, these ambitious activities I try to pursue, because unlike Crystal, unlike Mark and Zoe, I'm a bachelor, so I don't have kids, I don't have a loved one to work with. So.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, that's weird. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, so that's my loose end schedule, and try to find moments to just walk around the house and to distress.
Yeah, I'm not going to go through like box by box because you guys can read it. But I just want to say, I think that what has started to work for our family situation is, instead of having a block schedule, the kids have their snacks laid out for them. I found that planning our family food is really important. Otherwise, the kids will just raid the cabinet for marshmallows and chocolate chips or whatever they can find. And so I have to make sure everybody's eating, decently. And so their needs kind of punctuated throughout the day have been helpful for me, so that I don't end up working all the time, because it would be really easy to just go down the tornado vortex of working all the time. And my children need to move. So we get out of the house, and I feel like my whole life right now revolves around wearing them out enough that they'll let us get on Zoom. So that's just kind of where we are. I don't get things uploaded or lessons planned until after they go to bed. And they do concentrate well during those dark red hours. And so we try to get everything done by them. And I try to get them motivated to do it. But that's also when I need to be hopping into meetings for different classes. And that's also peak usage hours. And we have 7 people in our house all trying to pull from the same internet connection. So it gets really tricky sometimes. I found that for my kids, if this is helpful, we have 5 different subjects that they have to do a day, and then they get a sticker for each subject completed. And then when we fill up their little sticker charts that I got at the dollar store, we walk to the ice cream place up the street and get an ice cream cone or get a dollar store prize. So yeah, that's just how we are surviving. And it's a lot of give and take and a lot of negotiating with the spouse for who needs the quiet office.
And I completely understand the negotiating life. So we have a 19-month-old, her name is Gemma, and my wife is working full-time still. She works from home generally. And so it's this constant kind of pull of who watches Gemma and who gets to do work. And it's because Gemma's old enough now where if left alone, she can get into anything and everything and like just be a monster. But she's not old enough to kind of self-entertain. And so someone always kind of has to be on the lookout. And we've tried where I'm in a meeting and my wife Brianna's on a meeting and Gemma's like quietly playing, and then within like 5 minutes it's chaos. And so our schedule is very much kind of tag your it, except for nap time. So nap time is where the both of us just do a bunch of work. I'm creating video lessons for my kids, and so that like hour and a half window that I have is like when I do all that, where I try to make a video and then like start doing the editing portion of it. As you can see, based upon this, I am the latest to go to bed at about 1 o'clock. So typically about midnight or 1 o'clock is when I get to bed, just because after Gemma goes down at 8, like we still have to do meetings, and I have to finish the work that I did, and then we have to clean. Because dishes on dishes on dishes, and we don't have a dishwasher that works, and so that's a huge bummer. And so just to try to help kind of set us up for success that next coming day, But one thing that we have found that works is that like dinner family time about 5 to 7. That's when we get outside, we go on our walk, we make dinner, we sit down, and that kind of helps that helps Brianna, I think, a little bit more than it does me, just because her love language is quality time. Mine's not. Mine's gift giving and words of affirmation. So you just have to say something nice and buy me a gift, and we're good to go. But for her, it's quality time, and so like that is really that special time where we get to be a family, just because it constantly feels like we're working from wake up to going to bed. And so I encourage you, if you've heard of the love languages and you know what yours is, make sure that that tank is getting full. If you haven't heard of the love languages, I would encourage you to Google search after this and just kind of figure it out, read all about them, just because we give and we receive love in different ways. And so like I know for me, in my lowest points when I'm not feeling loved, I'm feeling super down on myself, like I have to reflect and think about like, well, how have those around me been kind of working? And with this quarantine, like words of affirmation is huge for me. And all of these videos that I'm putting out, like the same core group of people keep telling me that they like them, but they like me. And so they have to like them, like my wife, she watches it like it's good. I'm like, well, yeah, but would you tell me otherwise? And she's like, yeah, I would, but like, whatever. But so it's hearing that affirmation that like what I'm doing is good and is making a difference. So like, that's kind of taking a hit. So I've just had to learn and kind of readjust myself on that. So I would encourage you again to look into the love languages and see kind of where you fall. And if you felt pretty down recently, like your love tank just might not be full, and that's completely understandable during this pandemic. Zoe.
Yeah, so I going back to my first draft, I had like 3 blocks of time for different projects, and I could not keep up with that. I was feeling so drained, and I didn't know if that was, I left it like as a project. I didn't know if I would be focusing on student projects or like my own life things, like cleaning. I don't know. I gave myself blocks of time because I thought I needed more structure. And when I was just feeling so drained and down, I was going through my mail, and we had gotten a little, what do you call it? Like brochure from the energy company about how we were being charged for our energy. And so there was the off hours, the peak hours, and the super peak hours. And I thought about, wait, how am I using my energy? And so after like a couple weeks of interacting with students online, I started noticing patterns of when I'm getting like lots of emails and lots of meeting invites. So that's my super peak is kind of 8 to 12. And then like lunch is always changing, which is kind of normal for us. I had like lunch every day or a different time every day anyway. And then it kind of peters out towards the end of like the normal school day. So that's how I adjusted it. And then, yeah, I'm just trying to find those times where I can refill my bucket, kind of like what Mark was saying, and make sure that I am doing that every day. So,
I have one more thought that I wanted to add to that kind of goes beyond. I feel like we keep talking about this a lot, the 4 of us. It's not so much what every single day looks like. It's becoming a lot more about where we choose to put the most energy. In the beginning, we were all in teacher mode and very, very concerned about our classes, still are. We love our kids. Of course we do. That's why we're educators. But it's become very clear in the last few weeks that this is going to be lasting for a while. And when we do go back to our classrooms, it's going to be different for a while. And so what do we want to have come out of this time with on the other side? And so everything that we are putting a significant amount of energy into, as far as a learning curve or producing content, we want to make sure that it lasts beyond this global crisis. So I really appreciated how Marcus said, I'm going to make these videos, and they are, of course, they're for my students, but they're also for my nephews who live in another state and don't have a music teacher. Jonathan is really putting a lot of energy into learning all this new technology for different, video editing software and audio editing software, because that's a skill that he's really looking forward to being able to offer as a music teacher far beyond this pandemic. I'm taking some time to process some things out so that when I finally get to go back to actually teaching educators pedagogy, I have resources that I can link them to and say, here's the beginning of the activity. And so it's great for my students now to do their rhythm sticks at home, and it's great for my niece and nephew who can play along with me, but it's also going to serve me well later. So it's really easy to just because we're all overachievers as music educators, to just pour all this energy into lesson planning, but you have less now because of what Jonathan was saying about this being a time of grief and loss. When you've experienced a significant emotional hit, and when your life is in upheaval and your schedule is in upheaval, and maybe you're also caring for family at home on top of your work duties, you don't have the kind of energy that you used to pour into your job, and that's okay. It's, if nobody's told you that, let me be the one to tell you that it is okay that you are not producing every single day at the level that you used to. These are not normal circumstances. And so, yeah, what you are doing is enough. If you care at all and you're doing anything, it's enough. If you are in it and you're trying to learn it. And I know that Zoe wanted to kind of take that theme for the ending. So I won't say any more than that.
Yes. So, oh, wait, we are going to open it up for questions, but I do have something for the end.
Somebody else has something.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you get any, Mark?
I didn't, and that's okay. So typically, I'm not sure how Pennsylvania you guys like to do Q&As. I didn't get any messages, and that's a-okay. But we'll have a brief pause. Does anyone have a question? You can raise your hand. You can type it in the chat. You can listen to Gemma talk because she's loud. I love her. So are there any questions?
I don't really have a question. I just have something that just keeps going through my mind is I think you guys are about a week ahead of us with this whole thing. I think you closed 1 week before us. I'm really struck by the thought of stepping away from my curriculum that I have been instructed that I still need to deliver, and instead fulfill that role of school can be fun. Because when I'm in the classroom, that's really important to me, that when they're having fun when they're with me. And I'm struck by the fact that I haven't considered that in this environment. Like, how did I forget about something that was so crucial to the core of what I feel I do, what I provide for the students? So that's not really a question, just a thought that occurred to me while you guys were talking.
I could add on to that, Terry, actually. We had a conversation for our upcoming episode this Friday with a friend of ours. Her name is Victoria Bowler. And she hit up on a point where she creates online content all the time. And she was struggling to how to make it work with this kind of situation. And she realized something that was, it was right in front of our faces, but yet it was like, we missed it. Just that we try to place the content online, but that's not how we should approach it. Kind of like what you were saying, Terry, we should question, how do we place our philosophy online and how will that look? And I think if we take that viewpoint, I think there'll be a lot less stress.
I did get a private message, so I just want to answer that, and then we can jump in the couple that are full group chats. So John, Zoe, Crystal. This question was, how do you help loved ones stay motivated and less anxious? And I think that's an amazing question. I think for Crystal, do you want to jump in on it?
I can. And I just ran and grabbed some things for another question too. Helping family members feel less anxious?
Loved ones, yes.
Loved ones, yeah. We actually spend some time singing every day as a family. It's something that I did with my school that I implemented. Every single student, we live where there's nice weather all the time, so we meet every morning on the blacktop for morning announcements. So all 400 kids, and I would lead singing in the morning. So we would do a patriotic song or our school song, and then something about being kind or brave or being good people. And so I kept that going with my students, all year, and I do it with my kids, and I find that it's very grounding for them. But Madeline asked, what are some emotional wellness activities and lessons that you can do with your students? And if you look me up on YouTube, you can see a couple of lessons based on these. So these are two of my favorite books. I've got The Listening Walk here by Showers and Aliki. And then I've got, I love this book. This is Tomorrow I'll Be Brave by Jessica Hishy. And I love this book. And it's about tomorrow, it's about setting intentions. So the definition of mindfulness is just thinking about what you are doing. That's all it is. And so I would begin every music class with a mindfulness minute. And I had my singing bowl that I would ring and just say, I just want you to concentrate on the sound. And it just was something simple to help bring their minds to the present. And then we would do a visualization, like a flower opening up while we listened. And it was just a 1-minute thing. It'd be great if they did that on their own, but I just have been trying to pick books for them to sing to and do a little Orff style lesson to through a video that helps them set intentions. So this one is like, tomorrow I'll be adventurous and strong and brave, but I love it because at the end it says, tomorrow I'll be all of these things, but if I wasn't, that's okay. For now, I'm very sleepy, and tomorrow I'll try to be all the things that I wasn't today. And it's just beautiful. So I think just like reminding them, like, we're still growing, but you pick one thing, you pick one small thing. So this one's about listening to the sounds around you, and this one's about setting intentions. I find them valuable.
To piggyback off of the intentions piece about helping loved ones feel motivated and less anxious, is to have those hard conversations about like what is causing the anxiety, and then also just realizing like there's a lot that's out of our control and it sucks, and like as someone who likes control, like it's hard to let go, but I've had to really just kind of strong arm myself into letting go of the things that I can't control, and the things that I can't control are within my own household. And so I can control how I'm feeling during breakfast, how I'm feeling during this. I can control whether or not I'm overwhelmed by the amount of meetings or not. And as a teacher, and for me, it's hard to say no. But I've learned to say no to some things. And so to whoever feel like they need to learn that, like, you can say no. And I think, I think that those are a couple other things that you can kind of go along with. And then there was, Joey?
Yeah, I did have something that I wanted to say to that question. So it's a technique called deep listening. And like when someone is so anxious, it's really hard because you want to fix it for them and you want them to feel better immediately. But like what Mark was saying, like let them express it, and before responding, just you can say, I'm here for you, but then just listen and try your best not to think of what you're going to say back, and just be there. We were having some this is one more thing, and then I think John has to say something. But because we were having some like tension at my house about like when we were gonna be able to communicate, even when were we gonna have those times where we could deeply listen. So at John's school, you guys did a morning scrum. So now we're trying to do that at my house. So before all the work meetings start, we try and have our own meeting and say, okay, this is what's happening, and I'll see you on the other side. Like, see you at dinner or whatever it's gonna be.
On my end, as far as the whole helping loved ones, and also I think helping myself as well, I feel like we as a society consume so much. We, one of the first things that we did was go on Netflix to binge during this whole situation. And well, that's what most people did, at least. I don't know if that was you did or what I did, but I my biggest response to that is that we don't create enough. And as music teachers and musicians ourselves, we have the tools to create. And one of the things that I did, because like we were thankful enough to be in spring break mode. Like we had 1 week where schools were canceled, and then the week after that was already our scheduled spring break. So it gave me enough time to grieve at least. And during those 3 weeks, something that me and my roommates did was we painted, but also I led them in an ORF exercise where we did this movement piece where my roommate, he's more apprehensive with movement, like he decided to come out of his shell because we were all giving each other a safe space. So I think finding ways to create, even if it's just remedial, or even if it's not in your wheelhouse, if it's not just in a music wheelhouse, but it's something else, I think that's a good way to help relieve stress for either you and or your loved one.
And I don't think we said this, but if you haven't been able to tell, all of us we're ORF certified. And so we've completed our levels trainings. And so ORF is very prevalent in our teaching, and it's like kind of our foundation. So just so that's said, because we talk a lot about ORF. So yes. Katrina asked, how do your school district handle evaluations? So I was evaluated this year, and also that last week, my principal left for a different job. And so what my principal did, and Katrina, if you want to email us and we can connect and I can get you a larger answer instead of just my situation, my principal wrote my eval before she left. And so right now we have an interim principal who won't be evaluating me, but my previous principal, she already wrote that eval. So again, if you want to email us, we'll have our contact information at the end. I can get you a better answer and a wider answer, but that's how it was handled at my school.
I had one more quick mindfulness thing that I do with my kids all the time that might actually be helpful for you right now, and you can do it right now. It's called square breathing. You take a finger, you can do it. There you go. And then you breathe in and you trace a square. You go like this, you breathe in, and then you hold it while you trace the top of your square, and then you let it go out through your mouth, and then you hold, going here. One more time, breathe in, hold, breathe out, and you let it go. It's such a great way to bring your heart rate down and to bring your mind to the present. Zoe?
Yes. Okay, so I was asked to lead a closing meditation, and I thought about this short passage from a book called Creative Quest by Questlove. But it's about micro meditation, so not sitting for 5 minutes, barely even 1 minute. So I will, while you're getting comfortable, if you're standing, great. If you're sitting, great. Another breathing exercise for us. Breathing in, I'm aware of my in-breath. Breathing out, I'm aware of my out-breath. Breathing in, I am filled with light. Breathing out, I am grateful. And we are so grateful for everyone who showed up here to be with us. So thank you.
Thank you guys so very, very much.
Thank you.
This was,
Thank you for having us.
it was just wonderful. It was really great. It feels just like a kind of that collegial, feeling that some of us, me included, are missing right now. So that was great to have that support way on the other coast.
You were so welcome. Thank you for inviting us. And if you would like to hear more from us, if you have questions, you can reach us at chaoticharmonyclassroom@gmail.com. We would be thrilled to hear from you. And you can find the podcast anywhere you find podcasts. It's Chaotic Harmony. And then, Jonathan, did you have the link for the resources? Was that you? If you just go to chaoticharmonyclassroom.com/resources, There you go. We have updated the page with some things that we shared for you today. So you can find us at chaoticharmonyclassroom.com. And again, we will get back to you. We would be thrilled to hear from you. Let us know, what you thought. And if you have anything that you want us to talk about on an episode, we'd love to hear that too. We really would love to hear how our colleagues on the opposite coast are feeling. So yeah, thank you.
Want your weather. If you can send us that.
Yes, it's pretty great
You got
right
it.
now. So
We'll
do
put
our
some
best.
sunshine in a bottle for you.
Thank you. We'll take it.
So one of my favorite things that we do for the Teaching with Orf Tuesdays is we all pop off mute and we say goodbye. So before you leave, if you would like to pop off mute and say bye, then we could see your faces. So bye.
Bye. Thank
Bye,
you, everyone.
guys.
Bye.
Bye. Thank
Take
you
care.
so much.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Cool.
Goodbye.
So long.